UFC Vegas 94 is tomorrow. It's about 24 hours from now, and we lost our co-main event. Brad Tavares has no opponent whatsoever for tomorrow. Are we going to get a Dan Ige moment? Is somebody going to step up at the last possible minute so Brad Tavares can stay on this card? I have no idea. What I do know is that my name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to walk through the remaining 11 fights on the UFC Vegas 94 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. But before we talk about this card, let's take a look at the wild success that our community has been having. And if you say, hey, Ange, what do you mean the community? Well, the community are our premium members. If you don't know, we have a premium membership. People go to WeWantPicks.com. They click Become a Member. It's $10 for an entire month. That's $2.50 an event. And then unlocks all sorts of tools, insight, and information. And they have been putting up some very real numbers. Almost $600,000 in winnings over the last 6 months. It's not a coincidence. One winning ticket is a coincidence. $600,000 in winning tickets from a wildly large community, everything from $200 tickets to $80,000 tickets. That's not a coincidence. These people have access to the greatest ownership projections on planet Earth. That's not an exaggeration. If you go look at the Awesemo, the Roto Grinders, the giant DFS companies of the world, their ownership projections don't come anywhere near ours. UFC Denver, yet again, we were the leaders in this space, and those ownership projections will be preloaded into the DraftKings optimizer. This optimizer will build lineups for you. Click a few buttons, it'll spit out a lineup. Click a few buttons, it'll spit out 150 lineups. Every single thing I just mentioned, a million other things that I did not mention, are available right now for premium members. Just go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member up top, and unlock everything you need for an entire month. Next week is UFC 304. Let's go ahead and break down this card. Like I said, the Tavares Park card is canceled, or that fight. And you'll see it right here up top. And that sucks. But let's be thankful. That could have canceled tomorrow after we locked in our lineups. Luckily, it was canceled the day before. No problem. No foul. No big deal. We'll break down the card without it. Opening up the UFC Vegas 94 fight card, we have Mohammed Usman taking on Thomas Petersen. Mohammed Usman, the older brother of Kamaru Usman, but they fight nothing alike. I just like mentioning he's the older brother. Outside of that, they're nothing alike. Mohammed Usman does not have a wrestling background. He's not one of the best to ever do it. What he is a big physical heavyweight. He does wrestle occasionally. He'll hide behind a jab. He'll stay busy. He'll move forward. He's not particularly talented. He does have some power. The last time we saw it was against Zach Pauga. Since then, it's just sort of pot-shotting and forward pressure. But he's a pretty good fighter, and he's big, and he's physical. And I think that matters here because he's taking on Thomas Petersen. Thomas Petersen's not great either. But Thomas Petersen looks to close the distance and get fights to the ground. If he cannot get it to the ground, he's stuck striking. He's worse of a striker than Mohammed Usman is. Mohammed Usman's at least technical. He's evolving. He was a high-level athlete that played collegiate sports. Thomas Petersen's a guy that's just looking to get into MMA. He's not a particularly good striker. He doesn't have any real power. He can work takedowns, but it's going to be hard to take somebody as big as Usman down. If he does take you down, though, he does have great control on top. It is very hard to get out from underneath him. And if Thomas Petersen gets Mohammed Usman down, I imagine Usman's going to have a tough time getting up. I don't think he wins this fight. I do think Usman wins this fight. Usman is going to be the pick. But if I'm looking at his price point, $8,800, he does not score well. He's never covered his salary. Never covered his salary. Well, sorry, he's never covered the $8,800 salary. He beat Zach Pauga, which covered his salary. But outside of that, he's never come close. Mohammed Usman, I can't have him in my lineup at $8,800. He is not going to land that big punch. He's not going to get the knockout, which means we just have just an absolute sloppy-ass heavyweight fight to open up the card. Then we have Lucie Pudilova taking on Luana Carolina. Lucie Pudilova coming down to 125 pounds. She was a 135-pounder. She's working her way down. Obviously, there's questions there, right? How, on the good side, how exhausted is she going to be? Is she just going to be sucked out, have no energy, second round, not be able to fight? Or is she going to be bigger, stronger, heavier, be able to bully Luana Carolina? I don't think it matters. I don't think the size matters. I think Lucie loses here. She is a powerful striker, though, and I assume that power will carry its way down. She likes to circle. She'll throw big, heavy 1-2s. She doesn't really have a ton of volume. You can see here the significant strike numbers are alarmingly low. A 15-minute fight, 20 significant strikes? Fine, she was wrestled. Okay, Well, how about against Edwards? 39 significant strikes, 29 against Kish. These are decisions. She's a low-volume striker who does have power, but I don't think it's going to matter here because she is taking on Luana Carolina. Luana Carolina is just sneaky pretty good. Yeah, the loss to Molly McCann wasn't great. Spinning back elbow, she ate it in London, I believe, in front of a home crowd. It was actually a wild scene. And then she lost to Joanne Wood, but Joanne Wood's good. Outside of those two losses, which are quality, she's performed quite well. Beat Priscilla Caceres. So now we know you can't just bully her. She beat a big, strong bully. Botello is decent. Godinez. That's a name we know. Horrible fight IQ, but Luana Carolina is very good, and she was able to win that fight. Petrovic, she was the dog there. Got it done. Stoliarenko was the dog there. Not only got it done, but finished. And if we don't forget, Stoliarenko was coming off an incredible win over Molly McCann. Luana Carolina is a good fighter. She's a solid striker, good takedown defense. She's got an awkward striking style, which keeps people guessing, keeps them out of sorts. Takedown defense is 76%. She just finished Julia Stoliarenko. My only problem with that fight was the weird decision she was making. She was smoking Stoliarenko on her feet, but then would still shoot takedowns, which was the only opportunity Stoliarenko had to win. Long story short, I think Luana wins this fight. She's a dog. She is the underdog, and she's a dog in the fights. I think she wins. Problem is, yet another situation where the person I think wins does not score well in DraftKings. 76 points in an underdog win over Petrovic. Yes, she scored 100 points over Stoliarenko, but she beat that woman bell to bell and ultimately finished her, had some takedowns in the mix. Luana is borderline. I love that she's a dog. I bet on her in real life at plus money. I hate that she's at this mid price point. I may have her in my lineup though. There's a few underdogs on this card that I like quite a bit, and Brad Tavares was one of them. I just lost him, so I may have to leave Luana in my lineup and then go from there. But this is a borderline in my lineup. She is the pick. We'll see what my salary situation looks like. And then we have Trey Ogden taking on Loik Radzhabov. Trey Ogden, one of the underdogs that I like. Spoiler alert, I will have him in my lineup. And that's because he wrestles. He wrestles like an absolute machine. 117 points with only 3 takedowns because of the control time. 65 points in this win. That wasn't great. That's not a great win. 65 points, if I spent a ton of money on you, I would be furious. But this Nicholas Mata fight, he was well on his way to probably a submission. But there was an interesting situation. They called it a no contest. It was questionable at best. But Trey Ogden was winning that fight very clearly. So now we have a guy that's a couple wins in a row. He's feeling himself, coming off an impressive performance over Kurt Holobaugh. Trey Ogden's a guy that you can trust to move forward and then work in some takedowns. He's a guy that you can trust to stick to a game plan. He's not going to get wild. He's not going to put himself in harm's way. He's going to move forward, look to get to the fight to the ground, and work from there. I do like him to win, but it is not an easy fight. He's taking on Loik Radzhabov. Loik Radzhabov is also a very good fighter. He's a nonstop wrestler in his own right, and he has better power in his hands. Loik is probably the more well-rounded fighter between the two. I think his hands are better than Trey's, and his wrestling is very good. The difference between the two of them, though, is Loik will entertain the striking. Trey's just going to shoot. And Trey can get those takedowns. Loik gets taken down. He's been taken down in plenty of fights. His takedown defense is not nearly as good as his takedown offense. Al-Sawadi was smoking him. Al-Sawadi was beating him bell to bell, was getting the takedowns, was outstriking him. Ultimately, Loik got it done in the third, but I do think that Trey Ogden can win this fight. And it's a shame because Loik is a guy that I was pretty high on in the past. The win over Rybavix was very impressive. The amount of takedowns he got in that fight, he stuck with the wrestling. Al-Sawadi, he had 4 of his own takedowns, even though he was getting out-wrestled, he was taken down. And then ultimately, he got it done in the third round. So this is a tough fight. This is a close fight. I think Trey wins. And he's at such a good price point, I'm going to throw in my lineup. If this was that 8,000 price point, it would be tough because when Trey wins, he scores really well. So I'm going to go Trey here. Trey's going to be in my lineup. You need some underdog slots, and he's going to be one of them. Then we have Miranda Maverick taking on Dione Barbosa. Here's the thing. Miranda Maverick is wildly expensive. $9,200. But if we look at the slate, okay, she beats Sabina Mazo by submission. Don't know if a sub's going to happen here, but it's okay. She scored even more points in the win over Shanna Yeong at 119. Yeah, she got smoked by Jasmine. We knew that was going to happen, so she didn't score very well. She beats Priscilla Kuchera, gets the takedowns, finishes her. And then the Andrea Lee fight is a sloppy back and forth mess. The Andrea Lee fight is what has me concerned here. Because I think Miranda Maverick is pretty good. She can work in takedowns when she needs them. She's got great control on top. She's got great submissions. If something's there, she could snatch it. But in this fight, I think it goes to a decision. And if I trust Miranda Maverick's wrestling, which I do, I should put her in my lineup. The problem is, even in her last fight, she had 3 takedowns. She was wrestling, but she was getting reversed. She got taken. It was a sloppy fight. And that version of Miranda, the sloppy version of Miranda, might get tossed on her head because she's taking on Dione Barbosa. And Dione Barbosa is a very high-level judo practitioner. I didn't see this, but Jacob said she literally was on the Brazilian judo Olympic team. So that high level. I don't know how good Brazilians are in judo on a world level, but certainly if she made the Olympic team, she's one of the best in her own country. But judo is different than wrestling. We used the Luana Santos judo last week and said that she was going to smoke in that fight. Because judo, if you tie up with somebody, you're getting tossed. And that's what we saw last week. But you can beat judo just with good old American wrestling. If you don't tie up and you shoot takedowns up the middle, you're not going to get tossed. I think Miranda Maverick wins this fight. The question becomes, will she cover her salary? And that's a really tough decision to make because $9,200 is a lot of money to spend. She's the biggest favorite on this entire card, and she's not very dangerous. Dione Barbosa has good jiu-jitsu, good judo, is very durable. I think Miranda Maverick wins. I think she wins a decision, and she probably scores 80-something points in DraftKings, which may not be worth it. I'm probably not going to have Miranda Maverick in my lineup. If you are on the Dione Barbosa side, throw her in your lineup. $7,000 is wildly affordable for a woman. This was a gift of a decision, so let's be clear there. She barely, a lot of people don't even think she won that fight. But it's wildly affordable for somebody with her level of judo, with her ability on the ground. I think she loses. Jacob thinks she wins. $7,000 is a great price. If you're on that side, I am not on that side, so I will not be doing it. Then we have Cody Gibson taking on Brian Kelleher. I mentioned Miranda Maverick's the biggest favorite on this card. As far as betting odds are concerned, Cody Gibson's the most expensive fighter on this card as far as DraftKings fantasy pricing is concerned. But let's look at his record. 1, 2, 3, 4 UFC losses in a row. He has not been able to find his footing in the UFC. He hasn't won a fight in the UFC in 10 years. 10 years. And he knocked out Johnny Bedford. I'll give you 30 minutes to Google that guy to figure out who the hell Johnny Bedford is. So I am a bit surprised that it's this wide. But Cody Gibson is a good fighter. First of all, he's tremendous. He's very big for this weight class. He's a dog. He's very durable. He's a busy striker. He uses his length really well. He can set up some submissions. He'll dog it out. He'll duck his head. He'll bomb away. He had some success, right? He's winning fights on the local scene, made his way into the Ultimate Fighter house, had a little bit of success there, but he just cannot find his footing in the UFC, and he is 36 years old. He's no spring chicken. So for him to be this big of a favorite means he must be fighting an absolute dumpster. And he's not. He's fighting Brian Kelleher. Yes, Brian Kelleher has lost 3 in a row. Okay, he lost to Cody Garbrandt, former world champion Cody Garbrandt. He was an underdog, and he lost like an underdog. Mario Batista, potentially future title challenger Mario Batista. Okay, big underdog, lost that fight. Umar Nurmagomedov, potential future champion, big underdog, lost that fight. He's beating the people he should beat. Kevin Kroom smoked his dumbass. Pilarte smoked him. Ricky Simone out-wrestled, no problem. Beat Rodriguez. Cody Stamann. Listen, at the time, Cody Staman's not a bad loss. Azure, Osborne, like Montel Jackson. You have to go back to the John Lineker fight, and even John Lineker was good. And I'm saying names you don't even know of because I've been watching this so damn long, but even John Lineker was good. My point here is that all of these losses are good losses, and there is such a thing as a good loss. So I'm on the fence here. Pick-wise, I'm going to pick Cody. He's big. He's strong. He is a dog. And I think we are at a point in Brian Kelleher's career where he's just trying to have fun. He's trying to come out here, get paid, throw some punches, entertain some people, have a good time, and go home. where I do think Cody Gibson is trying to genuinely win these fights. He's genuinely trying to make something happen in the UFC. So I'm going to pick the bigger guy. I'm going to pick the guy that seems to be taking his career a little more seriously. I'm basing that off nothing. And I'm going to go with Cody Gibson here. But what do we have to go off of as far as putting him in our DraftKings lineup? Oh, Brian Kelleher lost his last 3 fights when he was in the 7,000 price range. And he lost to 3 killers, 3 ranked fighters, one a former world champion. That's what we're going off of? I don't know if I can put Cody in my lineup. It's such a tricky card. I do think Cody wins. He is the biggest favorite on this card. But if I'm picking between him and Miranda, I'll go Miranda over Cody. And I know that's sort of a hot take because people think Brian Kelleher sucks. He doesn't suck. He's just on an unfortunate skid, and he's probably a little checked out mentally, coming off an injury. He does get subbed. He can be finished. But Cody's not a prolific finisher. So there's a lot of talking to say, I don't know. Cody's the pick. And if I'm building my lineup, this is a fight I'll let the optimizer figure it out. I'll let the optimizer look at the projected score, look at the projected ownership, and then I'll let the optimizer do the fancy calculations and go from there. Then we have Yeong Lee taking on Hyder Amil. This is a fight that has a lot of people split. A lot of people loving Hyder Amil here. A lot of people loving Yeong Lee. I think Yeong Lee is that guy. I think he's very good. Well-rounded fighter. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's confident. He's technical. He has got a loose striking style. He'll manage range really well. Then he'll work in some takedowns and some grappling. He's coming off this win over Blake Builder. Only scored 73 points. And that's what's so damn tricky about this card. Nobody is covering their freaking salaries. It's insane. It is insane that nobody's covering their salaries in these fights. Look at his last fight. 50 points. To score 50 points in a win, you actively have to try to not do anything. It has to be a conscious decision to do nothing to score that few points in 15 minutes. Yeong Lee is a very good fighter. The Blake Builder win was fantastic. He beat a very good grappler in Blake Builder. He had his own takedowns. He had his own control, and he looked fantastic. He's taken on Hyder Amil, undefeated Hyder Amil. Hyder Amil scored 132 points in his win over Fernie Garcia. Beat the shit out of Fernie left to right. All across that cage. Both sides of the cage beat Fernie. At one point, he was sort of giving it up. Looked like, uh-oh. But then he was able to keep it together and then get the finish in the second round. Hyder Amil's an aggressive striker. He's going to walk through fire. He wants to be in the pocket. He wants to bomb away. He's got a solid chin himself. Good power. Sets a really nice pace. Not a very good wrestler, though. And we just watched Yeong Lee out-wrestle Blake Builder, who's supposed to be a very good grappler. I cannot have Yeong Lee in my lineup. Hyder Amil is too tough, too good, too durable. Yeong Lee is too low volume. I think Lee probably edges out this fight. I think he's going to be a little sharper in the striking, definitely the better actual wrestler. But Hyder Amil is an absolute dog, and I think he fights for your money, win or lose. So in the DraftKings fantasy world, where I am working with salaries to pick fighters, I'm going to have Hyder Amil at $7,100. I will put him in my lineup. That is such a good price point. Now that frees up some money, and maybe I do put Cody Gibson in my lineup. Maybe now it makes sense. Hyder Amil, not the pick, but he will be in my lineup because it's such a razor-thin close fight, and this dude works his ass off, and his opponent, insanely low volume considering his price point. Then we have Bill Algeo taking on Do Ho Choi. Bill Algeo let us down in his last fight. Bill Algeo made me want to burn the whole place to the ground. In his defense, yes, he was TKO'd. In his defense, he was still standing. I think it was a little early. Do I think anything was going to change? No, but let the dude fall down. He was standing up on his own right, both feet on the ground, nothing holding him up, no person, no cage. And the ref's like, stop the fight. So I think that was a little ridiculous. But he didn't look very good, did he? He's got that stupid karate style, which does work well for some, but not everybody. The karate style does typically work well for him. He lands at a very high volume of 6 significant strikes per minute. And he will fight a dirty fight. He doesn't play that like technical, let me stay way out of range kind of game. He will want to be in a dirty fight. Problem is, we just saw he got hit by a Canadian. Canada taking strays. He got hit by a Canadian and went down. Bill Algeo is a good fighter. I do think he might be just a touch overrated. And I'm basing that off of that last fight. This fight's an all-timer, though. Go watch him beat the shit out of Gilbert Burns' brother, and you're going to have a great time. But Bill Algeo, a BJJ black belt. He's got that karate style, good offense, typically pretty technically sound defensively. But here he is, yet again, as a big underdog. Kyle Nelson, he was a $9,100 favorite. He is taking on Doo-Ho Choi. The reason Doo-Ho Choi is a big underdog here is because the Korean Superboy barely ever fights. Fought once in 2023. Hadn't fought since 2019 before that. One time in 18, 2 times in 16. Like, this kid doesn't fight. He's still very young. He's still very talented. He's got a whole bunch of fight of the night bonuses in the UFC. A whole bunch. He's got 7 fights with 5 fight of the night bonuses. And this is what happened. He started in 2014. He beat Poog. He beat Sam Sicilia, my paisan. Beat Tavares. All of a sudden the UFC is like, oh shit. We have a superstar in our hands. So they rushed him. Swanson beat him. And keep in mind, this is 2016, 18, and 19. This is when these people were good. Cub Swanson, 2016, very good. Beat his ass. Jeremy Stevens, 2018, still good. Still tough. Beat his ass. Charles Jourdain, beat his ass. Then he comes back. He's beating Kyle Nelson. There isn't a foul in the 3rd round. They take a point away, makes it a draw. All of this narrative is to basically say he's kind of an unreliable guy that isn't very busy. He is exciting. 5 fight of the night bonuses. As I mentioned, he's a powerful striker, decent takedown defense, does a really good job throwing straight punches, staying active without getting too wild. He is very talented, but that record is spotty. The inconsistencies, he's not very busy. Man, this is such a tough card. Doo-Ho Choi is a very talented fighter, but I cannot... this guy hasn't won an MMA fight in 8 years. 8 years he hasn't won a fight. Jacobs can argue he beat Kyle Nelson, but he didn't. He landed the foul, so he didn't beat him, did he? Did he? Bill Algeo is the pick, and you may have to put him in your lineup. You might have to. Sketchy card. You might have to, because when Doo-Ho Choi loses, he does get finished, and Bill Algeo has some finishes. We're going Algeo, and I hate myself for it. That takes us to Cody Durden and Bruno Silva. Another tricky spot, because that's what this card is, just loaded with landmines and tricky fights. And I say that because Cody Durden is a good fighter. If Cody Durden can move forward, stick with the wrestling pressure, he can beat people and he can put up numbers. 84 points as a $7,400 underdog. 129 points as a $7,500 underdog. 86 points as a $7,700 underdog. 112 points as an $8,000 underdog. This dude has been a favorite one time in his UFC career against Arichi Lang, and he won that fight and covered his salary. Historically speaking, Cody Durden is worth the money if you think he wins. Obviously, there's fights like his last one against Tagir Ulanbekov, where he had no wrestling, ultimately got dropped and submitted. And this fight could look like that. Cody Durden's a good come-forward wrestler that has some hands, but he puts up these numbers because of this column. 4 takedowns, 11 takedowns, 4 takedowns. But he's fighting Bruno Silva, the little Bruno Silva, not the big guy that Poetan. And I don't know if people were trolling. It's hard to understand tone in comment sections or live streams, but people were like, no way Cody Durden finishes Bruno Silva. Even Poetan couldn't do that. I imagine they were joking, but you never know. This is the little baby Bruno Silva. But this little baby Bruno Silva has some big boy power. Look at the knockdown numbers. He has 4 knockdowns in his last 3 fights. I mean, JP Bays, 5 knockdowns. JP Bays is what it is. Anybody can knock him down. But knocking down Rodriguez in 2021, that was impressive. Knocking down Tyson Nam, a little older, but knocking down Tyson Nam, getting the sub there, that was impressive. Bruno Silva has his own wrestling. He's got his own heavy hands. He's got plenty of submissions. He's a busy guy. He's an active guy. This is a really tough fight. A really tough fight. I am going to lean Cody Durden, though, because I think if Cody gets the wrestling, then we're good, and he scores a ton of points. If you want to go the Bruno side, I get it. This dude does really well. 132 points as a dog. 127 points as a favorite, but more than covered what we needed him to do. 92 points in his last fight as the favorite. Bruno Silva puts up some numbers. But I think the non-stop wrestling pressure from Cody will make this fight look like when Bruno lost to Tagir Ulanbekov all the way back in 2020. Cody Durden's going to be the pick. And $8,300, if he gets that wrestling going, he's certainly going to be worth that money. Then we have Kurt Holobaugh taking on Kanan Kruszuski. Kurt Holobaugh's a dog here. He won this last season of The Ultimate Fighter. He's a come-forward striker, good pressure, good power. He's going to march forward, throw combinations, duck out, reset, come back in, start that cycle all over again. His BJJ is very, very good. Almost too good. He's too willing to use it. We've seen it defensively and offensively, like in the Austin Hubbard fight. But if we look at the Trey Ogden fight, he was taken down and he was just too comfortable there. Literally just way too comfortable hanging out. Like, all right, let me see if I can get us up. Kurt Holobaugh is a pretty good fighter. He's a tough guy. He's a durable guy. And I mentioned he's coming off this loss to Trey Ogden, but he was just straight up wet blanketed. He was taken down and held down. He's taking on Kanan Kruszuski. This guy stepped up on very short notice against Elfsbrenner, and he paid that price. He was knocked out pretty bad. But that's Elfsbrenner, and that was very, very short notice. Kanan Kruszuski is a stalking striker. He's going to walk you down. He's going to take his time, and then he will explode when he sees his opening. He does a nice job of controlling center, throwing accurate strikes. He can seem low volume when you're watching those fights. But again, once he gets comfortable, once he sees that opening, he lets his hands go. Striking defense isn't great. He does get touched up here. He's got very solid BJJ in his own right. I am going to lean Kurt Holobaugh here. Am I confident enough to throw my lineup? Probably not. Because we just don't know how good or bad Kruszuski is yet. He is very good if you watch the regional tape. This guy's unbelievable. Stepped up short notice, got smoked, but that's against Elfsbrenner short notice in his UFC debut. So I'm going to fade this fight. There's too many unknowns on the Kruszuski side, but I am going to pick Kurt Holobaugh just because he's got that dog in him and he'll move forward. Then we have sneaky good Steve Garcia. I will put him in my lineup at $8,600. And I've been saying this all week. He is sneaky good. He's just flying under the radar, knocking people out. Garcia's got 5 wins in the UFC, and all of them are by finish. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. We did watch him get finished in his own right against Mahashete, but Mahashete is a very good, very powerful striker. Steve Garcia not only has the striking power, but he's got wrestling. This win over Mel Costa was actually a TKO on the ground. Got the takedowns, TKO'd him. Steve Garcia can move forward, stay in your face, stay busy, and just break you down. The reason I think he flies under the radar is because he's not flashy. There's nothing flashy about him. He's just a hardworking dude that grinds. I think Steve Garcia wins this fight. I think he's worth his salary, but let's take a look at the other side of that fight. He's taking on Sang-Woo Choi. Sang-Woo Choi's decent. I'm surprised he's getting as much credit as he is here, though. He did just beat Jarno Aarons, and he actually looked pretty good in that fight. He was fast. He was accurate. He rocked Jarno a few times. One of them was officially a knockdown. A few others were just sort of had him on ice skates there. Sang-Woo Choi's a clean striker. He's very tall for this division. He'll throw with solid power, and he does a good job using kicks. Sometimes he'll even use those kicks like they're jabs. But I do think Steve Garcia is just going to walk through that, take Sang-Woo down, and beat him up, potentially land clean standing. Mike Trezano knocked him out cold. Mike Trezano is a very good striker, though, but Mike Trezano finished him. Alex Caceres finished him. And that was a fight where Sang-Woo Choi is a big favorite. A lot of hype in that fight. Beating Josh Coulibaugh was actually on his to-do list. He wasn't able to get that done. So 2 fights in a row where he was a big underdog and lost. Steps into his 3rd fight, big underdog, lost. Sang-Woo Choi keeps getting a lot of credit getting into these fights and then not necessarily getting the outcome he's looking for. I think Steve Garcia literally walks him down, beats him, and if history tells us anything, he will finish him. And then we have our co-main event of the evening. Again, if you've been fast-forwarding and clicking around, Brad Tavares' fight is canceled, so I'm assuming Steve Garcia is the new co-main. So we got Verna Jandiroba taking on Amanda Lemos. What I am going to tell you right now is pick your side. Just pick your side. Because if Verna wins, she's going to score really well. She scored 80 points against Godinez in 3 rounds. 95 points against Rodriguez in 3 rounds. 79 points against Angela Hill in 3 rounds. And did she cover her $8,500 salary against Angela Hill? No, she did not. But she's $8,500 now, and we have 2 more rounds. 2/3 more time to compete in. Verna Jandiroba's striking is not very good. She will bomb, just sort of look down and bomb, but she's going to come forward and look to wrestle. If you think she gets the takedowns, then she is worth the money. The wrestling pressure that she put on Godinez was incredible. And she's only credited with 2 takedowns, but that's because Lucie would come back up and Virna would drag her back down. Basically a full takedown movement, but not a full takedown because they never truly separated. She had 7.5 minutes of control time, which is nonstop pressure. Yes, she gets tired. Yes, she gets sloppy. And yes, this is going to be the biggest test of her career because she's taking on Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos is a big woman for this division. She is a Muay Thai striker. She's got good jiu-jitsu, decent takedown defense, and a very good Muay Thai striker. Now, pre-UFC, she was finishing everybody left and right. In the UFC, she has a handful of finishes, like plenty of finishes. But once she got to that upper echelon, it started to slow down a little bit. Weili Zhang beat her bell to bell. She smoked Mackenzie Dern. And I loved watching it because Mackenzie, how you're that good at jiu-jitsu but can't wrestle is beyond me. It makes no sense to me. I think Amanda Lemos is a phenomenal underdog on this card. I think Amanda Lemos, if she defends a few of those takedowns early, is going to make Virna look really, really bad. If Virna cannot get this to the ground, she's going to be desperate. Amanda Lemos is the better, more well-rounded fighter, but if she can't defend the takedowns, I don't know if it's worth it. I am going to pick Virna here. DraftKings, pick your side. If Amanda wins this fight, she's going to score pretty well, and she is the underdog at $7,700. If Virna wins this fight, she's going to score spectacularly well because that means we got a whole bunch of takedowns, maybe a submission, I doubt it, but a whole bunch of takedowns out of her. I'm going to go on the Virna Jandiroba side, but I'm not faulting anybody on the Amanda Lemos side. I think she's a phenomenal underdog. Guys, that is the breakdown. Don't be a cheap bastard. Premium membership's only $10 a month. Take a look at the wild success the community's been having. Join the Discord. Poke around there if you'd like. That is free. But you become a premium member, you unlock the DraftKings ownership projections. You unlock the optimizer. You get the picks, the bets, everything else that comes along with premium. It's only $10 for an entire month. And in a week, we have UFC 304. You're going to sign up for that anyway. Might as well sign up now and get this event too. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It is only $10 for an entire month.